You're listening to Conversion Cast, presented by Leadferno. I'm your host, Aaron Whitey. Conversion Cast focuses on digital marketing and conversion, exploring the art and science to turn a lurker on your website to a lead, a browser to a buyer. Today, we talk about killer calls to action, discussing how to motivate and capture prospects on your website. My guest is Joe Benson, the co-founder of Eversight, a managed web design and digital marketing service that powers over 400 websites. Eversight has appeared in the Inc. 5000 and helped drive over $350 million in sales for their clients. There's no doubt Joe has some great tips to share for us. And with that, let's get to the action. Joe Benson, thank you for joining me today on Conversion Cast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Aaron. Super excited.
I'm excited too, because we are talking about something near and dear to my heart, calls to action. I'm going to have a hard time not being really pro Leadferno on this one, because I've taken a lot of my thoughts and ideas and strategies, and you build that into your product. I know you've done the same with the platform, because you guys have created your own CMS at Eversight to make website building more streamlined and doing the right things in the right ways for your customer. But in looking at in our previous conversations, and the reason why we arrived on this topic is, yep, it's great to have something out there that looks great, reads great, everything else, but it's all about producing results. And one of the most key aspects into producing results is having great calls to action. That's what moves that customer from just existing as our intro says, going from a lurker to a lead and making that happen. So
love it.
Let's start off with the mindset that people should have when we're talking about calls to action. You'll hear us probably save ourselves some breath and use the word CTAs as the acronym. But strategically, how should a marketer be thinking about calls to action on their website?
Yeah, great question. There are a lot of things that can go into it, believe it or not, as simple as they are. It's important to have a really good strategy. So first thing I'd say is prioritize clarity. You want something that is really simple to digest, and you want to communicate to your user what you want them to do, right? So that's important. Step number one. You want to align the CTA with your customer journey as well. So, there are different stages of a customer's journey. They've got awareness, where they're just kind of learning who you are. Consideration, is this, the right fit? And then a decision to be made. And so, oftentimes, I know we may get into some of the pitfalls later, but, people will ask for the sale far too early, right? I like to say, you don't ask somebody out on the first date when you first shake their hand. It doesn't usually go well. So that's something to consider. Consistency with your brand story is ultra important. So, one example might be, if you are a luxury car brand, don't have a call to action that says, see our cheapest deals, right? It doesn't really go with your brand. That's not what you're selling, cheap deals. You're selling luxury. And then placement, I think, is super important too, right? That doesn't mean everything needs to be right up the top. We've seen nightmares where there are 12 calls to action above the fold. But we've seen, the inverse as well, where you've got one call to action at the very bottom of your website. No one ever gets there. So those are kind of the things strategically I would keep in mind.
Yeah, the one that you mentioned there that really stood out to me is aligning with that customer journey. And really here, I guess, is a couple things that comes to mind for this. And I want to see if you have comments on this. Businesses often really focus on really their dream journey, right? The customer comes, they're excited, they want to buy, they want to commit, whatever that is. So all of the CTAs will basically read like a buy now, a book now, right? That's the only outcome they're looking for, instead of this customer might not be their journey at this point in time. They might be information gathering and they just want to be able to stay in the loop more.
So true.
Ask a few questions, whatever that might be. So it's like to me, I always phrase it like the all or nothing proposition of buy or don't tell me who you are is where a lot of CTAs can fall short on websites.
No question about it. It's so important to understand your customer and the journey that they go through, right? So this is not going to be the same for everybody. It's going to change depending on your business, depending on how you're funneling people to your website and how informed they are. But you really want to get in the mindset of your customer and figure out what the funnel is that they're going to go down, right? What's the path that they're going to take? And if most people landing on your website don't know a whole lot about you, don't ask them to buy right away. Help them learn more. Send them somewhere that's going to answer questions, that's going to prove to them that you are the right fit for them first. And then after they've done that on an internal page, then ask them to commit, right? At that point, not the reverse. So one example on our website, buying a website or buying into a marketing agency is not something that you're just going to do on a whim, on a snap. So
yep.
The first thing that people want to know typically is, okay, this homepage looks kind of nice. I like some of the bullet points. How much does it cost? Right? That's the first thing that we found that people, they want to know, what do we do on a basic level at first? They want to know how much it costs. And then if they can afford it, they want to see examples of our work to confirm that it's solid. And so that's the path we try to, drive people down. Now, there are the occasional ones that, will want to talk right away. And that's okay too. There are two ways that we like to do that. One is, again, on our site, we have a kind of more subtle call to action where you can schedule a call, right? And it opens up a Calendly widget. The other one that we really like on homepages is a callback request form. So it gets you on the phone with the customer, which is always great, but you're not really asking for the sale at that time. You're just saying, hey, if you want to talk to a human, here's a really easy way to do it. And those, probably more than any other call to action, get the most action.
Yeah, the two things to me that stand out in what you shared there. One is understanding in that journey, how can you create CTAs that move them to each step of that journey very easily, right? Like if your trust is low, your knowledge is low, how can we move you through these steps to understand what your experience is? Are you focused in my area of need? Am I a good fit for you? Whatever that might be based on that business's service or product, and be able to stair step them to the level you need to get them to before they finally declare, okay, now sell to me. Now let's take a more right. committed step. Yeah. And then the second one being just as you outlined with it, is offering them those varieties, right? And that you hit upon, like, one, in Leadferno, we have a request to call feature. So, I always frame it, you might have someone who is what I call a phone first. That's how they prefer to communicate, but they don't want to call into your business because they've had so many experiences of, I call and I leave a voicemail and I don't know who's getting it, when they're going to call back. I call and get a call tree and I might not be clear on what button to press, where that goes.
100%.
So by doing this, you remove the friction of, oh, I don't want to do these things that I don't know and don't understand in your process. You just get a hold of me. I feel different about that. It's safer to me. It feels like I'm in more control when that happens. So that's one example. Someone who's like, I just want to schedule time to focus on this. That's another example. So it's really understanding, how can I appeal to my prospects, to the users on my website, and give them the right options that fit with their journey.
That's it. And you hit on it with the phrase remove friction, right? Ultimately, that's what sales and marketing is supposed to do. Remove as much friction as possible to get somebody in touch with you, to ultimately close the sale. So yeah, you're spot on, man, with all of that.
Nice. That's good, because it's what I do all day long. So if I'm off, yeah, I'm in trouble, right? I'm going to need you to get me back aligned on that. So we have the frame of mind right with what we discussed here. Let's talk about some of the components that are actually what we can see, touch, and feel when we are creating these CTAs. You already kind of mentioned, clarity, providing that next step, but what are some of the other components in this recipe to create a great CTA?
Yeah, so I would say, one of the most important is the design aspect of it. So you want something that is visually distinct and eye-catching, but you also want it to be kind of harmonious with your overall website design as well, right? So not an eyesore where you're like, oh my goodness, that's all I see.
Yep.
Right. But at the same time, you need them to see it, right? When you're ready to make the pitch, you need them to see that that's what you're doing and it be clear. I think another thing is incentive, right? So you want to clearly communicate the value or the benefit of them taking that action. So make sure they know that when they click something that you promise this is going to happen, and that is actually what happens. And then another thing that comes to mind, and this is not always applicable, but it is in particular in the e-commerce side of things, is urgency, right? If you can create a sense of urgency or scarcity and encourage immediate action in a positive way, then that's always a big win. You know, you see it all the time on a store. Oh, sale running out in 12 hours, buy now. It's like, I really want this, you know, that kind of thing. And then you go back the next day after you purchased it and it's the same sale running again, right? But it works.
Yep, absolutely. And I think too, I definitely see some other ways that can apply even to service businesses and things like that, both on the side, you know, one on the business side where it's like, hey, you know, our schedule's filling fast. We want to, you know, it could be a seasonal type motivation and use of urgency. But even also for the customer, right? I've definitely seen some great calls to action where they express for the customer, like, you will be less stressed once you get this up and running for us. You can relax, you can set it and forget it. You can go do the things you want to do while we take care of this with our, you know, service that we provide for your home, your auto, your life, whatever that might be. So that urgency is definitely one I think, yes, it comes first to mind for those with a transaction on their website, but in others, it's definitely an ingredient that is often left out.
Absolutely. And something that you just said that really is important to point out is that, you know, you're creating these things and highlighting the problems you're going to solve for the customer. Too many websites and calls to action focus on who we are as a business, what I am, what I've done. It needs to be about what problem I'm solving for my customer, what's going to make their life, you know, better, put their mind at ease, make them more efficient. It's about them. That's what they care about. They don't care about you. They care about them, right? So that's where you have to kind of direct your calls to action. Yep.
I often look at calls to action, headlines as well, things like that. Am I using the word your, right? Like, am I speaking directly to them, allowing them to think about themselves in it instead of we, we being the business, right?
Absolutely. We like to start with you deserve, right? And then fill that out from your customer. What do they deserve? And kind of use that and then tweak it. You know, I wouldn't start everything with you deserve, but our website actually does start with that. You deserve a better website, one that, you know, converts immediately, basically. So it's important.
Yeah, darn right, I deserve it.
That's right. Exactly.
It's right in with a lot of people in their pride, and that's an emotion. That's a great thing to help with conversion. You mentioned design, and this is one area just because I've been, I don't know, a design hack for 25 years. In so many different aspects. And I look at it, right, even when we created Leadferno, we wanted to create this widget that put call to action buttons always on the screen. And exactly what you talked about. We want them to stand out and bring attention to themselves. We don't want them to dominate where you can't take in the other elements and content and things like that. We want it to reflect the brand and colors and those types of items. And then using smart things, it might be, right, we use a little bit of motion and timing delay so it captures your attention. But you also made me think of, and I'm interested to hear your view on this, because I go back and forth. The marketer in me, and this controversial topic is pop-ups. So the marketer in me loves some of these things, right, where it's like, all right, jump in, especially when they're based on behavior after so many page views or so long in the site. I see them really frequently based off of when you go away from the site, it creates a stop of like, oh, hey, wait, before you go, or are you sure you want to go, and trying to entice them to stay. But also sometimes as a user, I also get these like, before I can even take any content in, they've determined this message is so important. We are going to overlay the screen and put this in front of you.
It's the worst. Yes. Yes. I'm with you. Spot on. I think pop-ups in general are not bad. I think tasteful pop-ups are the way to go. And the way, the simple test that we like to use is put yourself in the shoes of your customer.
Yep.
And you land on this website and you know what you're after, generally speaking. Do you want this pop-up to show up? And if so, at what point in time would it make sense to show up? And I would say 9 out of 10 times, it's not when I immediately land on the website.
Totally.
Right? It feels spammy and people are spammed to death these days. So I would definitely recommend not doing that. But the ones when you're about to leave and they pop up and say, hey, wait, we can give you a discount, or hey, did you see this? That's not going to hurt my feelings too much. I'm kind of on my way out anyway. If you have one more thing to tell me, so be it. Or I've seen them where, you scrolled down and you're getting close to the bottom and they kind of use the pop-up almost as their call to action, right? Where you've already consumed a general idea of what things are. I don't think that's a terrible idea either. So I think the biggest thing is to avoid the immediate pop-up.
Yep. And to me, I guess an easy way to summarize this is if you're using something like that, are you using it in a way that's helpful or forceful, right?
Exactly.
And helpful has all kinds of benefits in a two-way street. Forceful is just you trying to make what you want to have happen, either, getting in the way of what that user might want to do in their journey or whatever else. And I talk about this on numerous episodes just because I think self-awareness is such an incredible superpower. And it's really hard for marketers and business owners and things like that to sometimes be honest with them and be self-aware. Why do I want to do this? Do I want to do this to help my user, or do I want to do this because I think this will get a sale for me and I can manipulate what's taking place?
Exactly right. Absolutely.
With this episode talking about calls to action, this is a great time to point out that a lot of the tips that we're talking about today, and even some of the pitfalls, well, we've solved those at Leadferno and put them into a product that helps you put clear call to actions on every page of your website. It offers easier channels like text messaging and call requests for prospects to reach out to you. It allows you to link to some of your other conversion options that you have on your website. And these buttons are highly customizable that look fantastic on your website and draw the visitor's attention without getting in the way of their experience. If you're truly looking for a better call to action and better choices for how to convert customers on your website, you need to check out Leadferno. Visit leadferno.com and check out our 14-day free trial today. Oh, all right. Another element that I know we'll both be big on, that I think there's some great things to break down in here, is using social proof in your calls to action. Such a great and so many different ways to use it. Talk about some of the things that you guys, how you view it, how you like to implement this into CTAs.
Yeah. So, social proof is incredibly important just in general, right? You're not going to do business with somebody until you trust them. And I can talk about myself all day, but if we just met, you have no idea whether to trust me or not. But if 50 people to my right are all vouching for me and they tell you how amazing I am, you're, going to trust me a lot faster and maybe give me an opportunity. And so the sooner you can introduce some sort of social proof on your website, the better. The way that we like to do it is clearly it's not any special secret, but reviews, right? Whether it's a list of different testimonials from customers, or even if it's up top and it needs to be a little smaller, 72 5-star Google reviews, the little badge.
Yep.
And that's kind of the starting point. That'll kind of build credibility. It's not call to action specific necessarily, but I believe it certainly builds trust, which will make people be more willing to interact with your calls to action. One that we really like, I think this is the most impactful, are authentic customer review videos. When you can, now they're harder to get, But there are some tools that can be used. One of those I'll throw out there is Video Ask. It's a really cool tool where you pre-record these video questions, just like we're talking now. And the customer goes to a link, they get asked a question, they answer it truthfully. And then after the fact, we edit it, put it together, and make a review video out of it. There are a few on our website you can check out. But when people listen to others, former clients or current clients, really speak about their experience with you, it's so much better than just a piece of text that you may have asked them to write, or that sort of thing. You can really get an idea if someone is genuine and what their real experience was with you. If it's scripted or not. It's pretty easy to tell. So it's definitely worth it if you have the time, if you have clients willing to do it. Other than that, again, testimonials or another form of social proof, in our world is actual client websites, right? We'll show you that we can build awesome websites for $3.99 a month. Here's a list of 50 of them. Go check them out. We've got more if that's not enough, type of thing.
Yep. I was going to say, great points with that. I've always said when it comes to video, right? Sight, sound, and motion create emotion. And
yes.
When you can use that emotion to your benefit, and it just feels so much more authentic to that end user when they see something that is more of a rough cut, that it's not polished. They just see someone in front of their phone giving a testimonial and hitting upon a benefit that they received from using that company, that service, that product, whatever that might be. And then the last one that you just mentioned, I think people fail, yes, we gravitate, reviews have definitely, and I know this from running a review company and platform for 7 years and working with tens of thousands of businesses on this. Yeah. There's been a fever and a run to that. And there is a general understanding of a 5-star review system and a quantity amount of reviews and things like that speak to everyone. But numbers as an overall can be such a big driver, right? Writing a CTA that said, book now to join 2,000 other satisfied customers, right?
Absolutely.
So number of customers, we see a lot of business gravitate towards number of years, might be number of awards won, but think through other numbers. And it can be things related to the benefit. Start saving 3 hours a week now by booking with us, right? Those are all ways to use numbers to your advantage to speak clearly to how people understand what you offer.
I saw one the other day on Girdley's website. It was join 32,000 other business owners, and it was a newsletter subscribe call to action. Yeah. And, if you're a business owner, you're like, wow, if he's got 32,000 people listening, he must know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Right? And it brings on the FOMO, right? Like, I don't want to miss out. 32,000 others know this. I can't afford not to know this.
Absolutely. Yep. For sure.
Awesome. Let's just hit upon some quick, what are some pitfalls that you are commonly seeing when someone comes in, but you have the benefit of, great, we're about to create you something new and fix these things. But what are the ones that jump out on you that you repeatedly see when new clients come on board with you?
One of them I would say is overcomplicating it, right? And maybe being too vague. So I've seen, just as a random kind of made up example, begin the process of your comprehensive journey towards ultimate satisfaction by clicking here now. It's like, I have no idea what you just told me, but it was a whole lot, and it didn't really speak to me, right? And you're trying really hard, clearly, but we need to be simple. We need to be direct. So don't overcomplicate it. I would say, make sure you're consistent. Make sure that you're making sure that you're giving your visitors to your website calls to action that meet them where they're at on a consistent basis, where they are in the journey. Don't go too crazy and have 72 different types of calls to action, right? Hone in on what they need to be consistent, leading them down the path that they want to go. Poor visibility is another one. So ones that are just not placed in the right position, or, one of my favorites, or least favorites, I should say, is this huge headline and then this tiny, tiny text saying to get in touch, or something that you can barely even see up in a hero. It's like, that's what you want them to see, that almost more than you want them to see the headline. So make sure that you're positioning your calls to action in strategic places and that they're visible. Another one that's really important, especially as you have enough traffic to do so, is testing, right?
Yes.
You're probably not going to hit it right on the head the first time, and you'd be amazed at what some fairly minor changes can do in the psychology of a user going through your site. And so either A/B test or do the poor man's version of that by having your button say something for 1 month and then changing it yourself, and kind of monitoring how many leads come in the following month, and doing the eyeball test yourself, I think is super important. So yeah, that's one that most people never do, but I think it's probably one of the more important ones, again, especially as you've got a lot of traffic coming to your site.
Yeah. CTAs absolutely should not be a set it and forget it. In some way, shape, or form, you should be looking at how do we continue to evolve, understanding how much is enough data. So how long do we need to run these tests to have enough statistical confidence in what we're doing? As you outlined, right, it might be a month for one site. It might be 90 days or 6 months for another site.
Absolutely.
But you can obviously, even earlier in those time frames, look at some directional signals to some of the things that are there. We see it all the time and it's great. People, they're excited when they come to Leadferno and to get it on their site. But as with anything new, they do expect some type of an instant impact, right? Like, oh, the day I add this, I might get a record number of leads I've never had before. Yeah. But that might not be the day where you're driving the right amount of traffic. Buyers, are not in that mindset, whatever's going on with your other marketing mix. So it is really understanding, like, how do I get the right view to perform these tests and to understand it. But I think the most important thing is find, just as you outlined, whether it's a very basic way or more robust, find a way to track. And then from there, what do we know? What do we not know? How do we get smarter, better? How do we try these things and not just stand pat and think, oh, this is as good as it gets?
Yeah. And I would add to that, beyond just, did I get more leads with this test than the other? You can get even more advanced where you're actually tracking someone's journey through your funnel or funnels, right? And find out where the fall off is. So, okay, they clicked the button on the homepage that brought them to my services page. So they're learning more. Then they get down and they never make it to my pricing page for some reason. Why is that? And you can see the drop off, or 50% people make it to the service page, 2% make it to the pricing. What does that tell you? Your pricing, your service page probably needs to be improved. People aren't hearing you clearly. They're not, connecting with what you're offering. So they don't even care what your price is because you're not offering what they want. So that could be the case. Or an alternative could be you're getting the wrong traffic, right? Maybe you're driving the wrong people to your site in the first place, and that's why they're dropping off. But it can give you some real kind of insight into where to find why people are dropping off.
Yeah, no, great points. In closing, Joe, any couple of items you want to leave with the audience here today if they've taken this in and realized, all right, I need to go to my site, I need to start looking at my calls to action and revamp them. What are a couple things you want to leave them with to keep in mind as they approach that?
Yeah, I would say, again, put yourself in the shoes of your customer, not in the shoes of yourself as the business owner. And when somebody lands on your website, when should they see a call to action and what should it say? Let's say in 8 out of 10 cases, right? Most of the people coming to your site, what should that interaction and that engagement look like in your best guess? And make those changes. I'd also point out that, if you have different, let's say you have different AdWords campaigns running and they're kind of going after different audiences or for different products, make a landing page for each one of those so that when they land, the messaging and the calls to action can be specific to a product or a service. Don't send them all to your homepage where you kind of have more of this generic approach, because maybe you have 7 different services that you offer and you can't just call one out on the homepage. Solve that by creating 7 landing pages that cater to those specific people and really just help them get through the three different phases, right? Where they're trying to first get an idea of who you are, and then determine if they can trust you, and then ultimately make the sale. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I'd recommend doing.
Yeah, and that first one is so huge and something that I have long preached to people. If you aren't going through the experience of, landing on your own digital properties and just taking the mindset of a customer and then going into a CTA and then into a conversion method. I was just on a couple of weeks ago, a customer that signed up with us, and I saw they were going to link to their online request a bid form that asked for dates. When I clicked through, they were using a piece of software from their CRM to do that, and it was not mobile friendly. And I had to expand this thing like crazy. And I was when I pointed out to him, he was like, "Oh, right." And I was so surprised. Here's the marketing manager who has dictated this funnel, and has no idea that this is a horrible experience on mobile. So just taking those steps yourself, seeing for yourself, understanding what is the effort, what is the friction, is this clear to me if I remove all my biases on, well, yeah, this is the ultimate, this is the green path, this is the good path, because that's what I want to happen. You need to understand all the other challenges and friction that customer is facing. Lastly, Joe, if people are now hooked, they want to learn more. I know there's some great ways to connect with you, because one, I think I stumbled across you. We became connected because you've been doing weekly site reviews on Twitter, which is just great content, a number of great things to learn as people volunteer their sites to be picked apart for critiquing and suggestions. So where are you at on Twitter, and where else can people connect with you?
Yeah, appreciate that. So at website_Joe, Joe, that's my Twitter handle, X handle, and you can find me there every Wednesday. I do a post asking people to submit a link to their website, and I offer a free quote unquote roast. It's not too bad, I promise, where I'll for free review, like you said, their site and give them some tips. So that's one place. Eversight.com is our website. And from there, you can either schedule a call directly with us, you can call or text us, you can send an email, whatever your flavor is, you'll be able to get in touch. But I'd be happy to talk to you. Even if it's just to ask questions, feel free to reach out.
Perfect. I will link to those in the notes from this episode. And finally, my call to action: if you'd enjoyed this content and you've consumed others episodes that I've put out there, please subscribe to the podcast. And more than anything, share it with someone else in the industry that you know is interested. Love growing. The listeners love getting feedback and all of those elements. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. And Joe, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today.
Had a great time, Aaron. Appreciate it, man.